Hello you, welcome to Geekism and welcome to this Planet Zoo tutorial all about building. If you go on to enjoy this tutorial, please let me know by leaving a like, and if you're new here, make sure you click subscribe as we're going to be covering Planet Zoo every single day here on the channel. So in today's video we're going to go over the construction mechanics, how to build buildings basically. We're going to recreate this modern building here, features lots of different little bits and bobs. It's got a vet's in there, it's got a keeper's shack in there, it's got a rooftop garden for some reason, it's got murals on the side. It's a little bit of a hot mess, but the reason why we're building this is I've put this together as a way to kind of show each individual section of construction, how all the little bits and pieces go together, how the keyboard shortcuts and all that sort of stuff work, and hopefully by the end of this you'll have a really great knowledge of how to put together some fantastic looking buildings in Planet Zoo. Right then, let's dive in. First things first, we are going to wrap our construction around a facility. Now you don't have to do this, you can just build empty buildings if you want to, just for show, but for the most part your construction is going to be wrapped around something. So we're going to start off here with a vet surgery, and you'll see there's a big sort of orangey yellow grid around it, and that's because this is a grid item. You can see that just in the corner here of the image, just there you can see the little grid, and that means once this is placed down like so, there we go. We are now within an editing group number 34. It's usually the 34th thing you've tried to build, but the number can be anything really, it doesn't matter. And then while we're in this editing group here, that means everything else that has this grid item has to be placed on this grid. So if we come up and place a keeper hut as well, you'll see that that also snaps to this grid. It's a bit smaller, so it can move around the space a bit more, but you can see that that places down as well. We can rotate this by pressing the Z key, or the Z key, depending on where you're from. I know in the UK it's Z, but most of the rest of the world it's Z. So you can press Z to rotate. So we're going to place that down there at the front too. And there we go. Now we're still within our editing group, and we're going to try and stay within the editing group as much as we can, because it means you can move stuff around a little bit easier. But now we're going to click on construction. And then we've got loads of different options here. We're going to go up to architecture and then walls. Okay, so we're going to be building with some walls. We're going to be using the modern set for most of this because it's nice and plain. You can really see what's going on. New world it's called, sorry, not modern. You can select these on the filters here. You can select by different properties, how tall they are, how high they are, whether you can edit them, what they're made out of, loads of different things. We're just going to click new world now. A few reasons I want to use this one. One, it's nice and clean and simple to see, and also I've just unlocked it, so I want to mess around with it. Now, all of the wall pieces in this game, let's search again. Let's search down into wood, so we can really see the options here. So we've got two types of wood within the New World system, this sort of lighter yellow horizontal one, and then a darker vertical one. Each set of walls that you have come with a regular wall. They'll come with a 2 meter version and a 1 meter version, that's the height. And then there'll be one that fits doorways like this. There'll be one that fits, it says shop fronts, but it also fits the windows of these buildings as well. And then you've got some gabled pieces, that's pieces with peaks on them, or pieces here with slopes on them for fitting in the gaps on roofs. And then also some, I want to say some, not all, have these curved pieces as well. They're really nice. And then these ones, these are actually station surrounds. You'll use these later on when you're building your track rides, like the train station or whatever. These fill in the gaps underneath the tracks. But for now, we're just going to use our regular wall, and we're going to start off with this door piece. So when you're using a wall, you can hold down shift and that will raise it up and down. Okay, now as standard that raising is 4 meters. Everything works on a 4 meter grid, but if you click the little clipboard here, you can actually change this with grid height. You can change it from 2 meters, you can change it to 1 meter, and you can even take it down to 0, and then it's really smooth. So for most of the wall stuff, I'd probably put it at 2, but you can change that as you need to go on. For us, to be honest with you, 4 is going to be okay. So we need one of those there. We're just clicking to place it down. And one of those... oh, no, we don't need one of those there. Excuse me. Just pressing Control-Z there to move that. That's the wrong way around. So I'm going to press M to move it once it's placed down, and then Z to rotate it. Place it down again. There we go. Spot the deliberate mistake, eh? There we go. Now we want the shop fronts one to go there. Okay, and we also have some windows around the back. So again, you'll notice as I'm putting the wall down, you can place it on the inside of any square. So you want to make sure that you're on the right side here, because otherwise you'll start getting gaps like that, for instance, there you see. So you want to make sure you put it in the right spot. So we're going to place it there. In fact, I've just remembered that we actually use the corrugated metal there as a bit of a different material, so we'll place that on in a minute. And then the regular piece of wall, we're using Z to rotate, and we're just going to click that and place that round about there. So that's that one done. I've then placed a 2 meter horizontal dark wood just on top of this. No, a 1 meter, sorry. It might not be exact duplicate. So again, I'm holding Shift and moving those up until it goes into place. If you find stuff doing this automatically, you may find that you have auto stacking turned on. You'll see that even if we're lower down, look here, we can go and it starts to automatically put there. I think that's really quite annoying, to be honest with you. I want to put it there if I want it there. All right, so I'm going to do that. There we go. I can go right around the building, just pressing Z where I need to rotate. Okay, that's all that done. So now we don't need wood, we need metal this time, and we've got this lovely metal clad wall that's going to go in there. We've got a window piece around the back, and then here we've got a piece there. Now on this bit of building, we're going to have a look at how sloped roofs work. Okay, so if we click over here onto roofs and floors, you'll see that there's flat roofs and floors, or there's pitched roofs. So we're going to use a pitched roof here. It's just a nice way of saying sloped, I suppose. And we're going to shift click it up there and pop it into place. Now here you'll see we've got a problem. We have a gap here from where the wall ends and the roof begins. So we're going to go back to our wall pieces and we'll find the matching slope. You'll see that that's a 1 meter one. There's also a 2 meter one, and there's also a 4 meter one. Okay, we want the 1 meter one because we've used the 1 meter wall. We're going to place that in like that. Now you can add lots of different little trims and bits to walls and roofs. We're not going to go crazy with those, but we are just going to add the one little piece there, just so it's got a very slight overhang, and we'll add in the bit of ridge there as well. But again, you can do a lot more if you want to. So there's our basic structure. That's pretty much everything we're going to place down on a grid, but that should give you a good idea of how grids work. Remember that if you want to build off a grid, so if you want to sort of build a building at this angle, you're going to have to come out of this one, and then everything else you place down, it starts its own grid. So again, using Z, you can rotate that. Now, when you're not on a grid, you'll see that this is currently rotating. It looks like choppy. It's actually rotating at an angle of 15 every time, using Z to do that. To stop that happening, you can just tap space, and then you get free rotate. Or Z again, we'll put it back on again, and you can also click and drag this angle up to... oh no, you can't. You should be able to. This is beta still, so these things happen. But for the most part, you're going to want to probably build without having any sort of degree on there, but it's there if you need it for doing sort of right angles and stuff. It can get quite useful. Right then, we're going to carry on, and we're going to add some pillars onto this. So pillars then, if we come into... We've got columns here. Let's get rid of all of our text so we can see all of them. We'll click out of them. So one of the new ones we've unlocked, I think, is like a corrugated one. Maybe, is it under structural props? Oh, it is under structural props. Okay. Place down one of these. These are really nice things. So at the moment, we're building this. We've built this building on not only its own grid, but it's also on the world grid. Now, the world grid is based on where the actual sort of square of the park is. Okay. So if you look, there's the line for it there, you see. Now, I often suggest building on a world grid and then moving the building into place afterwards, because it can get really useful. For instance, let me show you. If we move this now and put it on a bit of a jaunty angle, okay. So if we come into this building and click Edit and put this, so now we're off the grid here. So if want this to line up, it's going to be really quite tricky to line that up just right. Okay, so if you have built like this and you need to get something lined up to it, the best way to do it is hover it up to a wall, and you'll find it'll start to snap towards the wall. Sometimes you might find it does this and just snap to middles of walls. You can turn that on and off with the F key. So tapping F will make it snap to the middle of shapes. Sometimes can be quite useful. I don't use it too much myself, to be honest, but pressing F again will make it come off. So by pressing that, we can now press X, and X makes us go into the sort of finer movement. So we've got X, Y, and Z movements here. Pressing X again will change it into rotation. And now we can rotate it up So it's lined up. We can tap X, and then we can very carefully just pull this into place where we want it to be. So we've used one there to kind of break up the difference between the wood and the metal. Another one sort of in the middle of those two pieces there. And another one on the end. I'm not going to go too much into theory of building here. This is more of a just sort of mechanics. But one really great way to make your buildings look a little better than them just looking like big boxes like this currently does is to add depth through pillars and things like that. They say that the devil is in the detail, and building in Planet Zoo is no different. So we're going to start basically adding some detail. This building is done. It's functional. It'll work exactly as you want it to. And it's starting to look okay. But we can make it look a lot better by adding stuff to it. So if you have come out of a building, you need to go back into it. Just click it. There's a button here that will get you into it. The shortcut key is the letter R. So we're back here and we're back on a grid, and then we're going to place down some of these nice bits here. We have a New World wall decoration frame. Looks great. Again, we're already on the building grid here, so it gets it put in the right place. But again, if I wasn't, I just have to sort of drag it up so it's touching a wall. X again, rotating it around 90 degrees. X again to put it back onto movement. And then we can sit and just fine-tune how this gets put in place. It may look like there's a lot going on here, but you'll very soon start getting to the hang of it. These key shortcuts will become second nature. So I'm going to place that down there. Some of the things you can put down to make things look good are like awnings, for instance. We have a few nice awnings here. This is the one we used here on here. If we press F, it tries to put it in a really weird spot, actually. So we won't press F, and we'll instead... looks like we're going to have to do this by hand again. Beta's going to beta. Bear with us with this one, okay? And we'll put that there so we've got a little bit of sunlight getting cut off there by the window. That looks good. All this high grass around it isn't looking great, and chances are these buildings are going to want to get used, so we'll put some paths around it. Now, paths will automatically try and extrude themselves from doors, but everywhere else you may struggle to put them around. Holding down control, by the way, will break them away from anything that they're trying to snap to. We are going to do a full tutorial on paths, by the way, because I know people have a bit of an issue with them. But for now, we're going to start by clicking there on the door, and then we're going to click down here, Align to Grid. And we're actually going to click that piece again, or we can click anywhere here, actually. We're all on the same grid still, apart from maybe one of these bigger bits. So we're going to click on that grid there, and then what we can do is basically drag this path around this building. Again, this will obviously go wherever you want it to go for your park, for your actual guests need to go, or the staff need to go. And so there we go. We have some path around it now. Just make sure that these paths are actually joined up to buildings. That one wasn't, but now is. There we go. And that one is because we started there. So now we've got some path, and we need to make that path look a little bit beautiful. I'm going to click into nature. Nature's split into three sections. You have plants, and these are pretty much exclusively the ones that you can place down within animals' exhibits, and they're happy about them. But we've also got gardening. That adds a few more that are a bit more sort of more for the guest's point of view. So you're going to keep these on side of paths. It also unlocks all these lovely planters, depending on the scenery theme. Some of you may not have these available. Make sure if you are in franchise mode that you are researching scenery to make these happen. Again, that's another video, I'm afraid. So we're not actually in this building, so I'm going to come back into here by pressing R and going back through that process to make sure that we're all building this together, so that when we move it, it's all going to be all in one. So we're going to put this plant down here, and we're going to put a plant inside it. I'm going to put something like this elephant here, maybe something a bit taller. That one will look quite nice. Now, rather than trying to line this up, I mean, it doesn't really matter where this goes within here. It will all look fine. But sometimes you might want to make sure something's really straight lined up with other pieces. To do that, you're going to click a piece. You're going to tap X to go into the advanced move mode. And whilst you're in this advanced move mode, if you press another item, it will place it exactly from its origin point where the other piece is. And now we can just drag that up, and we know that as far as the game is concerned now, that's actually dead in the middle. It probably wasn't the best example, but if you come into something like construction and columns, for instance, here's a good example. If we place this column down, and I want this piece here, well, it's not a great example either, they're all quite wide, aren't they? Okay, if I want this piece here to be right in the exact middle of that, rather than sitting for 20 minutes trying to line it up, if I open this one, X to move it, and then click this piece, it's now exactly in the middle, and that will stay on that grid, so you can carry on putting pieces in, you can rotate them around, You can add a pillar. You can do whatever you need to do. That's how you get really nice, neat pillars that are all perfectly lined up. That's some advanced stuff there, so we might go over that a little bit later on in another video. But for now, that's a really quick bonus tip for you. So a few other bits then, we're going to place some balances. Sometimes you can just free place all this sort of stuff like there. I'm quite happy with that. It doesn't have to be exact, so I'm quite happy that's to be free placed. And we'll place some, I don't think nettles will be very good outside the window. Stop people trying to break in, I suppose. It's like nature's razor wire. It's nature's razor wire, isn't it? There you go. Where are our fences? Props and fences. There we go. It took me forever to find those. Well, it did take me forever to find those. Okay, and again, I'm just going to free place some of these, although I want one next to it to be right. So now I've come back into this movement. If I want to duplicate that, I can press Shift and X instead of just X, and that will duplicate it but keep it on the X-axis there of them. Really powerful tool that, and we're going to show that off by finishing off with this rooftop here. So first of all, we need to put some mulch down because we want to grow some plants up here. I realise that it isn't very accurate. There's no way of actually getting up here, but we're going to place these down with X, and we're just going to move them around. So we've got somewhere to place our plants. There we go. A little bit of clipping there, but I don't mind too much. We're going to talk about clipping in just a moment properly. But for now, we can actually just cover that up with some flowers, so that's fine. So here's a nice tip then. Let's find something that's singular. Here we go. We're going to grow this plant up here. Okay. So we want to move this plant left a little now to place multiples of them in. But if we just do this, it doesn't look great. And the reason it doesn't look great is because they're all exactly lined up the same. They're all identical, especially if you look at it something like that. They're all identical, and it doesn't look very natural. So we're going to press Control and Z to get rid of some of those and come back into this one here with Control and X. So what we're going to do instead is as we place them down, we're going to rotate them. But now when we press X, we've moved off that line that we were using because we've rotated the item. But luckily, because we're building this on the world grid, we can actually have a relative to world axis button that will put that axis back on the world. This is one of the reasons why I would always recommend building on the world axis if you can, because it's really, really useful to have that second axis that you can always resort back to. Now again, they don't look perfect because they're all different heights. Again, I'm moving a little bit into theory here, but it's always worth, when you're placing down things like this, to vary heights of them a little, to make them look a little bit more natural. There we go. And in one of the best things about Planet Zoo is in some variations you've got different heights sort of built into them. I'm just picking really random plants here to put down. This is a very strange rooftop garden. Let's do some. Oh, that's a bit large, goldenrod, but there we go. Some of that stuff and a little medium one to finish off with. There we go. Just tap in Z, by the way, will do a 90-degree turn on stuff, even when it's not on the grid. There we go. So it's rooftop garden. It's a bit more colourful than that one, but that's fine. Very quickly, then we're going to go back into construction, and we're going to find ourselves that glass roof. So we're going to come up into here to pitched roofs, and scroll through to find modern glass roof 2. There we go. I'm going to move that in place. So again, just very simply putting these back in. There we go. We've actually used the 1 meter one there, but that doesn't matter too much. So these are just floating at the moment. If you want to leave them floating, you can do, but I think it looks a little bit weird. So instead, we're going to go into walls and then pillars, and we're going to find a nice plain wooden pillar. So again, I want to make sure these are just in the right spot. I can place them down in one of a few ways. That's probably the way I'm going to do it, but I always like to just make sure it's right myself, just to be, because I'm a pedantic so-and-so. I'm going to drag that down into place. So at this point, this is the last thing we're going to be talking about, really, this massive duplication. Oh, Zfighting very quickly as well. At this point, I want another one of those right in the same spot here. Now, I can eyeball it and probably get it pretty close, but there's an easier way to do it and a more accurate way to do it. So we're going to Control Z to duplicate it, and then we can just drag it across. And there we are, kind of eyeballing it a bit here, to be honest, to get it right, but that's fine. Now, I know what you're thinking, we need these two things here in exactly the same place, pretty much. So if you click hold down the shift key and click something else. You'll select both of them. If you select something by accident using this method, you can press Control and click, and it will deselect it. Once you've got everything you want selected, you can now Control and X, and that will duplicate both of them, and it will give you an axis that's roughly the middle of them. Now, this is a little funky, and it struggles sometimes. If you keep everything the same sort of direction and like poles and stuff like this, it's probably fine. If you're using a big random group of stuff and you try and do this, you might get some funky results, so just bear that in mind. But we're going to drag those over to roughly where they want to be, so they match up, which is there. And then we need 4 smaller ones as well, don't we? So we're going to keep those 2 selected, and again, with Shift and left click, we're going to take all 4 of those, Control and X, and move all of those over. And then once they're in place, we'll drag them down, and that gives us our glass roof supports. There's a few other little bits and bobs we're missing here, a bit of signage, that sort of thing. So let's click in here into signs. Facility signs. I've put an information sign up here, even though it's actually a vet. I just wanted to kind of break that wall up a little, so that's fine. What else have we got? Oh yeah, these murals. Now I really wanted to do this mural. Sorry, not muriel. That was my grandma's next door neighbour. Mural. I want to do here. These are all in the species signs. These are all gorgeous. I can't wait to play around with these a little bit more. And the reason why I want to show you these is because I want to talk about something called Zfighting. So we're going to place down this jaguar here. And you can just kind of place these loose if you want to, but I'm going to use X to get the thingy just right to show you something called Zfighting that you can see happening here. This is basically where 2 items' planes are on the exact same Z as each other. So Z, if you go think back to mathematics back in school, you've got X and Y. Okay, you remember X and Y for a graph? Well, if that graph went back into the distance and became 3D, you would add Z. So in this case, the red one here is as Z. It's the depth of something. And at the moment, these two have the exact same Z. Now, this isn't just a mural problem. This is the sort of thing that can happen with walls if you're overlapping them. This one actually seems to work really quite well. Oh, there you go. There's a good thing of it there. You can see Zfighting happening. All right, so if this is the sort of thing that's happening and you want a little bit of trim there, what you can do is place it down, click it. This is getting really quite technical now. You can click it, and you can click up here, split from group. And now we've come out of this group. Now we've got a piece just on its own. And if we click X, we can now push that in just to where it wants to be. And then whilst we're in that group, we can move stuff around on that grid. And all that grid is ever so slightly off this grid. It's very subtle, but you can see if you click between the 2 grids, you can see the difference. Okay, so that's one way of getting rid of Zfighting. But the most time you'll probably find it is when you're adding sort of windows to images, to walls and stuff. So let's very quickly do something like this. The way to fix it is just to change that Z just ever so slightly. So here it's not much of a bother, but we want the Jaguar out in front anyway. So we're going to place that down like that. I can select both of those, bring them forwards because it's actually going to be quite a bit behind them. Let's place down this big old leaf here. Turn it round. And again, I'm not really going to go into too much detail here because this is all subjective, isn't it, really, as to what looks good. But I really think these mural pieces are fantastic. I can see these being used a lot, to be honest, because it's definitely the sort of thing you see in real-life zoos. And they're going to break up the walls really good. It looks like he's trying to pretend to be a lion there, doesn't he? With his green. And we'll finish off. You can see all of these are Zfighting just slightly, so you're going to have to keep dragging them down so they're all just in the right spot. Oh, not over the poor thing's face. Here's a good tip. I'm trying to click that blue flower and it's selecting the giraffe, and I can't quite get to the flower because, you know, these collision boxes just cross over. If that's the case, I can press delete to get rid of that giraffe. Then I can click the flower, and whilst the flower is clicked, I can press Control and Z to undo. The giraffe comes back and I'm still holding the flower. Very useful little trick there that I completely forgot about until I needed to use it. There we go. So we'll finish off with some flowers there. We might be able to select. No, we really can't select that flower. Okay, so I'll do that. There we go, and just push that back a little bit so the giraffe has got some edging on. And there we go. two nearly identical buildings, but I hope that that's given you a good idea of what you can accomplish with some techniques. I know I've kind of raced through this a little bit to try and keep the video under an hour, but please feel free to skip back and forth and find the bits you need, and I would love to see what you create using these techniques. The best way to do that is to check out our Discord. You'll find the link in the description. We have a full Planet Zoo section. There's a place where you can share images of stuff you've made. There's a place where you can just generally chat about the game, and there's a place you can share real world images for inspiration. There's some really gorgeous stuff on there. As far as tutorials go, make sure you stick here on Geekism, because not only have we got some more building style tutorials with pathing and exhibit work, we're going to be starting Zoo School when the game launches on November 5th, which is where we take real life examples of exhibits from around the world's most famous and impressive zoos and take the advice from them to put them into Planet Zoo to make the best exhibits we can. It's going to be awesome, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and keep it here on Geekism. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Be good.